Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to Culz Reviews, one of our TV slash just series reviews. Today we're again touching on Goosebumps, The Vanishing, episode 2, which is Stay Out of the Basement, part 2. So yeah, again, we got some artwork. You can see lots of kind of goosebumpy artwork going around. Again, I'm still pretty impressed with just episode 2. I haven't binged watched this, so I'm still only seen up to episode 2. Um, but as usual, or at least like last week, we got David of Abnormal Voyages down there. We got Grayson over there, and we got Nolan from the Texas Regional Response Team. So, David, did you end up binge watching the rest of the series?
No, I haven't watched any further than what I had last time, so I'm still about, I think episode 5 or 6. So I'm almost at the end.
Okay. I was tempted. I was tempted. I almost at least watched the episode 3 just because it ends. We'll get there, but yeah, I was pretty intrigued. So I don't know. Grayson, do you want to just kick off a little synopsis of the episode and then we'll dive into it?
So sure, it is going to be, Don't Go in the Basement Part 2 is the official, episode title. Wrapping up the first half or the second half of the short story. Starts off with the beginning of the day after both Tony and his son were attacked by the living plant in the last episode, and there is a strange brew going on inside Tony when he wakes up the next morning. Basically finds a living pod, has the tentacles wriggling, slapping him in the face, waking him up from a deep sleep from a horrific night of living plants attacking him. Tries to remove it from himself, and then from there they cut to the kids doing teenager things where what's the son's name again?
Devin.
Devin. Devin goes to meet up with the crush that he had when he was a kid, who is now dating Troy.
Trey.
Sorry.
Junior.
Junior.
So many
I always think of
names.
Kim Possible every time I hear that in this stinking show, dude. Anyway, he goes to talk with his crush. She actually also has officially been fed up with Trey and took all of his pictures off her wall. Because, that's what it's like being a teenager. That super dramatic, super meaningful motion of just projection against Trey.
And it's also indicated that this isn't the first time that she's gotten to this point, that she just never quite followed through with breaking up, right?
Yeah,
100%.
her mom mentions that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you see how they interact, like, literally after she gets done talking to, or, like, when she's going to work to Trey, that dude's a walking red flag. It's insane how just like toxic that relationship is. But she then goes to work and tries to break up with Trey, but Trey kind of, manipulate her boyfriend, words his way around not breaking up by basically trying to guilt her into staying, semi-committed to the relationship while she's trying to get out of it. But then they meet up at work. But then she gets to work. Devin shows up. They flirt a little bit. Trey catches them flirting after the fact. Then he tries to go and confront Devin about it. And then Devin basically, or no, that's later. Then it cuts to Trey being back home. David Schwimmer freaking out about the thing that he has in his arm, trying to send that off to somebody to actually do some research on what the plan is. But yet again, we've got Trey's car parked out in front of, front of his house. And
in
David
his driveway.
In his driveway.
Don't park in other people's driveways, people.
Bad luck. Even if the mom did let you do it, it's a bad luck. But anyway, to that point, Tony's tired of asking Trey not to park in his driveway. So, he decides to break out a little gardening shovel and do some property damage, and gets a little even with good old Trey Jr. and throws a couple daggers his way for being a little bit of a douche, and felt a little good as an audience member watching that happen. And then honestly, I can't remember what happens after that, so somebody else has got to take over.
So long story short, the kid gets all pissy about the fact that happened, and he's mad about his girlfriend dumping him and probably going for his son. So he decides to break into the basement to mess up whatever experiments he's got going on. The girlfriend's like, no, what are you doing? This is stupid. And he's like, no, I'm gonna do it anyways. Like this kid's such a douchebag. I can't stand this kid.
Really, and a Mets fan on top of that, like you hate to see.
Yeah, like so anyway, so he breaks in, and this is after we've seen. I don't know if you covered this. There was literally a pod plant thing that came out of David Schwimmer's arm.
Yeah, with like tentacles.
It grew inside of him. It came out, and then he finds out that it seems to feed on meat/blood. Which, if anybody has seen Little Shop of Horrors, that should have been the end of this, and he torches it. But of course, he does not. So he goes off.
Exactly what I was thinking when that happened.
It was such a "Feed Me Seymour" kind of moment.
Oh, 1000%.
So he ends up going to the pet shop at some point and getting like some dead mice that he tests it with, and the plant sucks them up, eats them. And then he decides to go get some more meat over at like a butcher shop, something to get a little more substantial meat. While he's gone, he puts it in the freezer.
What you missed on that was he sent some samples.
Oh, that's right. He sent some samples out to colleagues, and like, they were like, I don't know what this is. Then they find out it could be a new species.
Yeah, they said it was animal, carnivore.
They're like, it's a carnivore, but it's botany still. Like, so they know it. He's like, okay, I may have found something really unique, special, whatever. So he's very protective of it. He puts it in the freezer to contain it while he's gone. And of course, when this douchebag kid breaks in, he ends up interacting with it by accident. Like, it opens up and the plant just literally just eats him. Somehow it sucks him out of his clothes, which I think is very interesting, because the clothes are still like there on the floor, but he's gone.
Oh, that's right.
So that, yeah. So that all happens, and then he ends up actually like coming out of it, but he's like a plant monster thing now. He's super creepy looking, and he kind of chases around the ex-girlfriend, and Devin. They end up at the auto shop. So they're kind of fighting with that. And in the climactic final of that battle, his car is up on some things where it was being worked on, and they end up basically crushing him with the car. And it he splatters, he's gone, but you do see that his essence or whatnot actually kind of sucks into the car, and that's kind of the cliffhanger that we're left on is he may or may not be in the car. His essence, they think it's over, but we did see him kind of transport into the car instead. And as far as the dad is concerned, he was just kind of freaking out because he couldn't find his plant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where kind of Stay Out of the Basement Part 2 leaves us, going into the next episode, which is called The Haunted Car.
The Haunted Car, yeah.
So it kind of gives you a little hint of what's to come.
Well, and hey, Haunted Car got a new window, so.
Yes, we do find out that it was all smashed up. As soon as he kind of sucks into it, all of the blemishes and broken glass and everything all fix. So it it looks great.
Pristine, yeah.
Yeah. So kind of shows us that whatever this plant thing is, it might have some kind of restorative properties or quick healing and such, which makes sense because when they were fighting it, any kind of damage they did with anything was instantly pretty much healed up. So it went into the car's window fixed right back up, and it was good to go.
Yeah, a little Transformer-esque noise when the window gets fixed too. I was like, oh, I know that sound. No, so this episode I thought was good. I thought it could have very easily fallen into the trap of being a filler episode, but it did so much at the beginning and at the end and carrying the story. I thought it was really good again. I was really, again, impressed with how they're just crafting the story.
Yeah, no, it was great. I think it was an appropriate part 2 of, it felt like a direct continuation of the first episode, as it should. It didn't introduce, too many new things, but enough moving forward that we have some threads to kind of follow. Had a little bit of character development. Everything moved along pretty well. It didn't drag too much. We got some more personal drama with the whole love triangle, boyfriend girlfriend stuff. and then a lot of furtherance of the plant mystery of what's happening in the basement. No answers yet, but that's because it's still very early on in the season.
Grayson, what were your thoughts with episode 2?
I will say with episode 2, there is some ideas that I kind of even thought of while we were talking about it right here, but I would like to delve deeper once we wrap up the series, just because I have, been through it, but I will not spoil it now. However, episode 2 was honestly, when I was first going through the series, kept me hooked. Honestly, kept me kind of just going through the episodes. Really well acted. The effects were fantastic. The Audrey 2 effects on those pods were, just gorgeous. Definitely building up the hype to kind of see what happens, especially since like the goo has transferred to the car now. Kind of had you kind of curious on to see what they would do with that kind of idea. And I thought overall Tregout was coming to him. It was a good to see the car actually fall on this dude, because he was just been such a tool this entire series so far.
Like if that's our last appearance of that kid, I'd be fine.
Right. I will say probably my favorite part of this episode is when Devin says to Trey, he's like, "What are you gonna do? Give me a green ring around my neck with that fake ass chain?" Best, like one of my favorite lines.
And he looks like genuinely hurt by that. He's like, "What are you talking about?"
It's from a grandma.
Like, I haven't been to New York, but this feels real New York right now. This is a real New York moment. But yeah, I mean, the series started off really well. It was really strong. I know we kind of talked about some of our gripes last week, but honestly, when it was coming out of the gate, this episode or this series started off real strong. So
yeah, like honestly, if they had decided to release this in weekly segments and they would have started off with just like part 1 and 2 coming out, I think it would have been enough to definitely hook me to at least tune in for the next couple weeks.
Absolutely.
Like to want to see it keep going.
Yeah, like what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is I would say that this episode definitely confirmed that they were not just straight up copying the book Stay Out of the Basement. It definitely kind of veered, because of the first part, all of that was pretty much still in line with like the book. But once we introduced to the pod coming out of his arm and all that kind of stuff, and the kid, it did show us that it's definitely doing its own thing and kind of took a turn, because in the book, it was just a clone of the dad that got created. And that was kind of it. And they just kind of dealt with that. So bringing in other people and taking it further. What's up?
Well, I was gonna say like the because that's one of the ones that I've not read, like that specific book or whatever. It was just a plant that became their dad?
Yeah. It's like a new plant thing that kind of absorbs his DNA type thing, and it makes like a picture perfect version of him and takes over his life. It kind of like ties him up and shoves him away. And the dad is like kept in the basement, and the plant is like taking over his life to like spread out.
Okay, yeah, that's wildly different.
And it starts trying to feed the kids plant, like a special plant type food to turn them into plants too. It's basically trying to make everybody into plants. And then the big twist at the end of that book, they think they killed the plant and everything's fine. And then at the very end, one of the kids like trips or something or falls, and there's like a flower growing, and the flower says, "Help me, I'm your actual dad."
Wild. Yeah. Just the crazy twist at the end.
That her dad became like a flower, and that the other one is still like a plant dad or whatever. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because the plant dad has like leaves growing out of his hair, so he always wears a Brooklyn Dodgers hat.
Yeah.
And like he's like super like nonchalant about it, because the kids are always like, "What's going on? Why do you have leaves?" And he's like, "Just side effects. It's fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, he's like, "It's just something I'm working on. It's weird.
Yeah.
Nothing to be concerned about though." And they're like,
"Yeah.
Okay, Dad."
Okay, I was curious because it was one of those things, like I was wondering like if maybe he was working on like cloning himself or something like that in the basement, and then happened to mix it with like plant, and then
no, he's still a botanist, and it's still like a plant-based like thing that he's doing. So it is kind of believable he's running plant experiments.
Right. Okay.
It's just a little stranger than that. And in the meantime, he's basically turning into Groot over here,
He is Groot. Yeah. Yo soy Groot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, it's definitely a wildly different.
So it goes way, it definitely goes way different.
I think that's cool though, right? Like that's like as far as like shows go, there are times when I think that you should stay super, true to the book and like the material. And then there are other times where you can take something like this and go like based on whatever it is, right? Because I feel like that's exactly what they're doing with like the entirety of the whole season, since they're making it like not separate, like episodes.
Since they're not doing episodic with like separate little stories, that they're doing one long one with one each element. So I think it's fine just to take elements of the story and throw it in. And as far as this goes, they still took like 70% of it. So I think they did a good job. It's a good modern day adaptation.
So, and it is, because you'll hear me complain about that all the time of like, oh, well, they didn't do this or blah, blah, blah. Like, and I get it. Sometimes you can't stay true to whatever it is, but at the same time, it's like if you take elements of it and you kind of keep you'll hear me say this time and time again, the heart or the soul of like whatever the actual original.
Absolutely. They took the heart of the idea.
Yeah.
And spun it in with the other ones going forward. So
and as long as
I
that
had
stays
no problem with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
They even kept his name the same. Like they did a lot very well in this. I had no issues with this version of it because they actually did of the original Goosebumps TV show. I believe they also did an episode of the 90s one of Stay Out of the Basement.
Nice.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. And that one's a direct like to the book with like the younger kids, like the plants, all that. So you can see both versions and they're very different, but you can tell they're based on the same book.
So one thing I do want to say, especially about this episode, I think the one thing they could have done to, keep as the series plays out, I'll develop this more, but one thing I do kind of want to bring up is the tweak I'd like to see happen, or I would have done myself, is to have, the plant make a copy of the dad as we go through this series. It'll make more sense and I'll elaborate more on it as we go along. But if the plant made a copy of the dad, it could play into a lot more of the plot points that we see throughout the rest of the series, which could be, still being a little bit too, maybe almost too close to the original, but still giving you the possibility to work with some more, imaginative ideas than what, or at least just something different than what the rest of the series provided. But it's still a good series. But
I still have a couple episodes to go, but I agree with you. I've already seen where if there would have been a clone dad, it definitely could have fit in very well.
100%.
Yeah.
I like it. Clone dad. Dad clone.
I mean, that's what it was. Yeah.
I mean, can we talk about just one thing real quick? David Schwimmer's just reactions. This dude just needs to being cast in just horror movies. Just with the way he reacts, it's fantastic.
Oh, like especially when he was taking the thing out of his arm.
Exactly. Yeah. When he's just working out. The dude's got
honestly, I thought he was being pretty calm for finding a whole damn like growing thing. And he's just like, wow, that's
well, wow. And you know what, Dave, I think it comes from the fact that like, and this is like one of those like weird trope kind of things that goes along with shows like this, or like specifically like even in the book, right? It's like scientists are weird, man. Like their reactions to things, like sometimes
very unemotional,
it is, right? It's like very scientific sometimes.
It's like it's detached.
Like, very
detached. Discovery
right?
with my pan right now.
What's up?
Oh yeah, and it's just like one of those things. Like any normal person would like kill it with fire. You know what I mean? Like it's. But
I would have been like, kids were going to the ER right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. But these scientists and the people that like make these things, or they create like you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, my babies are my creation. And you're like, bro, you should have literally lit that thing on fire, like already. Just douse it in gasoline, match, done. And we don't have any of these problems, any of the kind of crazy stuff that's going on right now. But instead, he's like, oh, let me take this giant thing out of my arm and then feed it mice later. You know what I mean? It's just like, bro, what?
One thing that we forgot to add in the recap. I think the first episode ended, we saw that like the vines came up and pulled Devin into the sewers.
And
Right. We do see that he like gets out of that, and it's kind of shown that the sewer area or whatever kind of ties to that same place they went to with like the dare or whatever, where the kids disappeared. Yeah. There's some kind of connection with that. And he doesn't remember when he wakes up, like what had happened or how that. So seeing the mom going through dementia in the first episode, he slightly thinks that maybe it's a hereditary thing, that he's kind of losing his mind as well. So he specifically does not tell his dad about the vines coming up, pulling him out, like all of that. He tells his sister and says specifically like, don't tell dad, which is a staple of Goosebump books, that the kids
Yeah.
never communicate with the adults and they're useless. So, but that is something that's kind of an ongoing, that the dad doesn't know about this, because if they had both talked at this point, he probably would have been able to put 2 and 2 together very early with the stuff in the basement. But I digress on that. But yeah, so this kid thinks he might be going crazy and kind of gaslighting himself. So
Well, it is
doesn't bring it up.
hereditary, to be fair. So
Right. So I mean,
You
it's
know what I
not unfounded. Like, I get, especially at that age where you could be, if you don't know a lot about it.
oh yeah, sure.
I get it. But
Wow.
he thinks he might be losing it a little bit, so he has not been vocal about this craziness. But I think he does get some relief with the whole plant monster thing, that
Yeah.
the girl does see it too when they're getting attacked.
Oh well, I mean, like that was the whole. So that was kind of like a weird like plot point thing, like because I think I don't know if Grayson went over that bit, but the part where like he like kidnaps her essentially and like takes her to the garage, but he's like, here's a scraper, and she's like, what do you want me to do? Like the crazy thing is like he has the ability to use words and to say things, but he can
Yeah.
only play charades. Like when
Instead,
he like
he's just
hands
this
her the
crazy,
scraper.
yeah.
Like I was like,
And then it's really weird, like the noises he makes when she scrapes him the first time. Like,
well, you know, sometimes
I
hey, you
gotta-
scratch my back, I scratch yours, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it got really weird.
Or you scrape my back, I'll scrape yours, I guess.
And I also like that when he was like the plant thing, the one thing he still had was that damn chain.
The chain, brother. That
It was pretty
maybe
good.
it has a problem with organic metal material, right?
I mean, as we
So-
saw, it did turn him green.
True.
Oh, God.
It is very true. Green
but,
adjacent, greenish.
Honestly, with like the mom's dementia, I honestly thought that because of everything being involved in the sewers and kind of like the waterways, especially since everything kind of seems to be like an aerosol type thing, I honestly thought that it's more of like the goo infecting the mom and kind of like making her think that Maddie's still alive because like she has that connection. You know what I mean? With the goo, because it was in the water.
She's definitely have some experience with it. Is
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
We didn't also cover, so Junior and Devin get in a fist fight. And that's when Frankie comes over and tries to break it up. And of course, Trey is just like a D-bag, as we've said. Like, he's just an awful character. But also at the same time, Devin is also like having some like anger issues flare up. And I was like, is that from the plant? Like, is the plant changing him?
Well, I was actually going to mention that because like it was one of those things like there's not a tone change, but kind of there's like a character shift, because it was one of those things like when he first got there, he was very non-confrontational, like awkward and like
Awkward,
like
shy.
like awkward shy, right? But it was one of those things like when the dude is like, he's like, hold on, who's banging on my door? Like comes out there or whatever. Like it was one of those things I was not expecting him to react that way of like, he's not yours, like, you know, I mean, not your property, whatever, blah 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 kind of thing. Like he seemed a little more like standoffish than like he was before, right? Where he's like this weird, like nervous, you know.
He's
kinda,
like, I don't have time for this. Come on.
right. And it was just one of those things I was like, I noticed the tone shift and I was like, maybe that is the plants kind of like doing whatever, or the, you know, the stuff that made goo come out of his eyes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did notice that. I was like, that's an interesting situation here, that now they're, you know, he's a little more brave, I guess. I don't know.
I think, isn't this also the episode where we find out that they that Devin and Frankie, that they were like each other's first kiss or something like that?
Last episode.
Was that last episode that okay.
Or at least Frankie was Devin's. I don't know if they were both, but I know that's what his sister said in the last one.
But also, fist fight is a loose term because that was
Not much of a fight.
It was a
TV
match
drama fist
at
fight.
most. I think I've actually seen my nephews hit each other harder. Yeah, but I was like, that was a slight wrestling match in the front yard, is what that was.
Also, he when he's breaking all the experiments and the plants and stuff, he takes selfies of himself. I'm like, yeah, just incriminate yourself. Like that's how not to criminal 101.
Bro. Well, that's the craziness right there. Part of that
And
is
I guess we didn't mention it. There is a cop that's been
yeah.
around that was around when David Schwimmer's character's brother went missing, that she was involved with that too, that she's trying to put it behind her. She does know about him being mad about the car always being there, and they've complained about it. Like
Well, I think
Junior's
they're
dad.
friends, right? Like I think they were like friends,
Yes.
like from that original incident or whatever, right? Like,
so I don't think it's covered it yet, but she was dating his brother.
okay, yeah,
That's more towards the
yeah,
end of the series.
Yeah, you'll find that out later on. I mean, it's not a big spoiler, so I don't mind saying it, but yeah, they were dating at the time, so they were all there together when the brother went missing / died, whatever.
And that's what I figured. That was like she's connected.
But they do
to
go
this
back
somehow still, yeah.
right? But they do go back, and so she's the one that'll be brought in to figure out, like, because they think this kid went missing. So that starts the plan.
Oh yeah, and it turns out that she's is her name Alex, her mom, and she like gave her like the sentence for juvie or whatever.
Right. Yes, the girl that was kind of trying to flirt with the sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's about it. And it leads us into the haunted car.
Yeah, which I'm excited to see how they tied in. I also, so when the there was like the blood or the goo or whatever, I was like, I had forgotten when we were watching the episode 3 was the haunted car, but I was like, oh, it's monster blood. And then it sucked back up in the car. I was like, oh yeah, that's right, haunted cars 3, and then monster blood's 4. So
don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Nolan, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Honestly, I really liked it. It was one of those ones that, like David said, like it could have been like a, you know what I mean, like a filler, but it wasn't. It was one of those ones that they did it well, I think, like of going through both of them. And it's like it was like strong to the end. Because if I'm being honest, like I don't know, like that would be weird to me for you to like have a part 1 and a part 2, but then the part 2 do nothing, like to be like a filler. Like I'd be like, what was the point of that? You just wasted it. Like that was, if you wanted at least any part of that to be a filler, the first episode should be.
Right, because the first one just being like a setup for characters, I could see that being more of a filler than the second.
Than the second. So that's kind of crazy. But overall, like I thought it was cool. I thought the because like I said, I've never read the book, so like I don't have any like expectations of like where that's supposed to go. So like me just watching the show, like, you know, fresh eyes, you know, I mean, no prior knowledge kind of thing. It's still a good story. The, you know what I mean, the whole albeit the pitfalls of scientists and the way their brains work. It was still like a good episode with like good stories, right? Like or at least I guess the wrapping up of that specific
the narrative
sort of story,
arc.
right? Because clearly it's one of those things like all this stuff is going to like continue into like more episodes or with like the same people kind of thing. So like as far as like wrapping up like that specific story, I guess that was a pretty cool way to do that. I will say that I like the transition from like one story into like technically another, you know what I mean? Like that whole,
but
like,
still having them connected.
But still having them connected, I think is a cool concept. Like that is like kind of cool in the way of it's like, oh, okay, so they're still going to continue the whole, you know, season, or it's still the same characters throughout the thing, but they're going to try to work in different elements of different books and all that kind of stuff. And that's like, oh, okay, that's like a super cool idea for something like this, especially when you have like a whole book series or whatever that's just full of different crazy stories or whatever. But at the same time, some of them can be like relatively connected. Like I know there's a couple books, right, that kind of have semi crossover kind of situations. Like it just makes is there any? No,
they're all very standalone.
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Do you think they all take place in the same universe though? They've got to, right?
We've never seen anything that indicates that they do.
I think it's sort of like the Twilight Zone, where they're just
it could happen
stories.
At the same. It could not. Like it kind of leaves it up to the kids' imagination.
Fair. Because I mean,
like, it's never proven, but I don't think anything's ever really happened that says that it's not the same universe.
Well, and I mean, I guess like that's what I mean is like I just infer that, you know, because I'm like, well, it's all Goosebumps. Like I don't know, imagine why it would not be in the same universe. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool though. Sometimes like if you take it and I don't know, maybe some of the stories have like a little bit of like crossovers or at least a reference to another one or something like that. Like
it'd be great if they did that. That would have been really cool.
And I think that'd be super cool, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if
I do think
kind of how they're doing the show.
Some of the newer stuff I think might. There was a series that's like Slappy World or something, where it's a bunch of like he's like the host of the stories. I think some of those it talks a little bit more, and Slappy at least interacts with things like the horrors at Horrorland and things like that.
Yeah.
I think some of those maybe start to draw a little closer, but at least the original like 60 something, never. They do have sequels, like the Monster Bloods all have the same kids, same characters, like they build on each other. Say Cheese and Die, all of those, those keep going. But as far as the other stuff, yeah.
That's cool.
And then there's other ones like Shocker on Shock Street, which is an amazing book. In that one, you find out like the twist at that is that the kids that you've followed the entire way through like the story aren't even real. They were like robots used to test out something for like monsters.
That's crazy. Like,
yeah,
what a twist.
So they think, you're built up thinking that it's this like two best friends going on a new theme park attraction based on their favorite horror franchise. But then the monsters inside the ride and everything turn out to be like real monsters. And they're like trying to escape this like new, like, because it's like a whole world in the attraction. And then at the end, you find out that they were actually just like test robots built for monsters. Yeah.
I wonder if
crazy.
M. Night Shyamalan ever read some like Goosebumps stuff, and maybe he's like trying to get some ideas here from time to time, because like that, I mean, that's a pretty good twist though, like to learn like that the kids technically
just real, like the Ghost Next Door. You find out at the end that the ghost was actually the main character the whole time when she thinks that the neighbor is the ghost.
Makes sense, like
and done before it.
Yeah.
I mean, on that note too, the another good one, A Girl That Cried Monster, gonna be one of the episodes in this series too. I feel like was done a little disservice, to be honest with you, because that was probably one of my favorite twists in the books. I don't know if I want to spoil it here, but it was just it blew my mind as a kid, where it was like or no, we've already talked about a whole bunch of stuff anyway. Where like the girl like is trying to follow the librarian, and like she doesn't know if he's a monster or not, and then all of a sudden like they invite the librarian over for some reason to a family dinner, and then it turns out that her and her family are monsters, and they eat the librarian. Wild twist I did not see coming. It was,
but it's after she thinks it's a monster and is telling everybody, and they don't believe her.
Exactly. Yep.
What a twist.
He was the master at twist. They were usually really good, and you really didn't see them coming most of the time. At least not as a kid.
You don't ever invite librarians over for dinner, dude? Is that not a common occurrence for you?
There's a lot of ways I could go with this, but we're gonna keep it PG. So.
Anyways, no, it's well, that's kind of like part of the like one of my favorite ones. Like I said, the vampire breath or whatever it is like it's like going through it, and then like they're like running around. They're like, oh my god, these vampires are all crazy all over the place or whatever. And then they come down there. The dad's like, oh, but you are vampires, and they're like, what?
What?
What? It's like, but that's your grandpa, and like that's your, and they're like, no way, like what? And then you're like, what a twist! Like the kids are running the whole time, and turns out it's like, oh no, you guys are vampires. Congratulations. Like, yeah. So
yeah, no, I'll say the writing I told David this today, having reread. It's been a while since I've read them, but the R.L. Stine's writing is actually really good. I think it still holds up. Especially you think when it was written more for a younger audience, it's really well written. Like I no complaints there. He does a really, really good job at crafting these stories and like just describing everything you need to know. Not going into too much detail, obviously, for the kids, but I thought it was good.
I will say the one thing on that note too is that R.L. Stine, I think we even talked about this last time, but R.L. Stine's writing doesn't talk down to the kids. It actually, lets them feel included in like a part of the universe instead of, making it like it just seem like a placation to the kids. It makes like even the readers and the actual characters in the universe feel like individuals that are making choices that make sense to them. And it takes the readers on the ride along with them to kind of get them involved in that kind of emotion, which I think not a lot of authors can really do well.
Also, one thing I forgot to mention, with as far as like finding Trey's clothes, I think that's just an homage to the book, because the kids find like Mr. Martinez's clothes in the basement. So I feel like that's probably why they threw that part in there. It's just to be like, oh yeah, you remember that part in the book. What did you guys think of music in this one? Because I know that was a big talking point last episode.
Finishing
fine.
off with System of a Down, always great.
Honestly, I think throughout the series they did a good job. A lot of good needle drops in it.
Well, and okay, so we get a monster in this one. How was the prosthetics and makeup and everything, do you guys think?
I thought they were fantastic,
Fantastic.
especially like the he looked to me, at least on the face or whatever, like it was just one of those things. He looked very like Jeepers Creepers looking. Like
I can
just
see
kinda
that.
like the melty looking thing, or like the part over his mouth with like the teeth. I was like, oh, it's kind of like Jeepers Creepers-esque. It's like Jeepers Creepers and Swamp Thing and the Hunchback of Notre Dame had like this weird orgy baby.
Amalgamation of a baby.
Yeah. And that's what you get, is something that is gross and ugly and grotesque and terrifying. But yeah, it was one of those things that definitely needs to brush his teeth.
Yeah, I thought the creature design was really good, and they even kind of have the kind of throwback to the hand picture on the cover where Frankie's in the basement. You see like kind of the hand come through. So I thought it, again, really well done. In the middle, you could see where it could have fallen in the trap to be a filler, but whoever's crafting this series is doing an excellent job of just like knowing where to put things to keep you entertained and to build the suspense and build the story. So excellent, whoever is the story writer of this one.
How did they get out of the basement? Because like all it does is they go, like they freak out, quick cut.
Well, the
And then
monster
next
probably
thing-
just broke it out. Yeah.
So yeah, the
Okay.
monster
And
breaks
then,
out
next
that
thing,
way.
they got her over the shoulder and just like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
She
I
was
think
having
she
trouble
goes
doing
down
it.
there because she uses the Find Your iPhone or whatever, like his location, and it's still the basement.
oh, like after, yeah, well, yeah, no, she calls him.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
No,
heard
she
that
uses the
buzzing,
Find My
yeah.
iPhone thing.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
after
she
he's been
goes-
sucked into the thing, and then he comes out of the
Mhm.
freezer. I think Devin is with her too, right? They're down there.
Yep.
No,
And
he's
then
No,
not.
Devin
He-
comes to the front door, and that's when
He was in the sewer.
Trans,
with
the
the other
monster,
guy.
Oh, that's
comes
right.
out. Yeah,
They were
yeah.
checking out other
Yeah.
things or whatever, and the dude was
But
like, "Don't ever."
she finds
I'm
his
never helping
phone
you
is
ever again."
how. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he like goes to go, like walk back in or whatever, and the dude comes out and he's like, "Yo!"
Yeah, the
And
one
then gets
who's
thrown.
the delivery guy, but he's like, I just deliver your food. You didn't pay me enough to do this, and just like leaves.
I love it.
Yeah, honestly, I think
All
it's really
of your egg
funny.
rolls.
It's like a recurring thing throughout the series. Anytime anybody needs any little thing, they call that poor guy to show
For
up.
him.
Like,
when
they're
you're
like, hey,
dependable,
now
man,
that
you're
you're
dependable.
here, I need you to do that. And he's
Well, that was like here's all of your egg rolls. That implies
yeah, I love it every time. Like, he's eating the food.
1000%.
Oh, and Bussin
I didn't
did come back
really
up in
like
this one
need your help.
too. After Frankie and Devin fight, and she's like, "It's so not Bussin," and he's just like, "Ah." Yeah, no, I think it's really well crafted. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but I'm glad we have. It's been a good watch. Nolan, cinematography wise, all that still pretty good on your.
Oh,
aspect?
absolutely. They definitely kept the tone. And it's one of those ones like, because sometimes there are episodes, I don't have one off the top of my brain at the moment, but when you do like a two-parter, like sometimes they're different. You know what I mean? Like there's like a tone shift or like a different how do I describe it? Either way, this didn't do that. It stayed constant through both episodes of keeping that relative like suspense through like both of them or whatever, instead of kind of just slow playing it through two, through one and like 3/4 of an episode and then like big finish kind of thing. Like this was like they kept it pretty progressive, like of that suspense of like, oh, what's this? Oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? Like through the whole, like both episodes, So yeah, so it was one of those things like I thought it was still really good. And it didn't change like through most of it, which is nice. I don't know if it's gonna change through all of the other episodes since they're like different books or whatever, but through both of these two, it was quite good, and it relatively stayed the same. So everything still is an A+ from me.
Greyson, having watched the whole thing, tone stay the same the whole way?
Yeah, for the most part. I feel like near the end of the series, they were trying to wrap up way too much with what they were trying to involve in there. But for the most part, tone stays the same, acting stays the same. I mean, direction, everything really solid. It doesn't really like take a tonal shift too heavily. It feels like the way that the story evolves, it is earned and not just, we're taking a right turn here and you better buckle up. Very well written for what it is. For children's TV, probably, or young adult TV, probably nothing better out there like available at this time, because it's, story's cohesive, it's engaging, it's entertaining, and even if you've never really like read the stories before, you still have a way to enjoy it with how different it is from the books. But yeah, for the most part, pretty solid, through and through.
Yeah, I mean, and it's definitely different from the book Stay Out of the Basement, because that book's pretty contained to just the house because they're much younger kids, like David said last week. And then it's them, they keep going back to, it's mainly the kids in the rooms or the kids in the kitchen or the kids sneaking into the basement. So obviously that would be hard to spread it out 8 episodes. So I think how they're doing it is really well done. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited for Haunted Car. I think that was a kind of just perfect cliffhanger to like just give you enough to be like, okay, I'm excited for this next episode, but not give away too much. David, what are your final thoughts, ratings, and recommendations on episode 2 of Goosebumps: The Vanishing?
I mean, I thought it was good. I think they continued what they started in episode 1. They set things up really well, kind of set the bar at a good place. I think they're being loyal to the source material in making it kind of a darker show, a little older, but still, as Nolan mentioned, keeping the heart of it true. I think they're doing a solid job so far, and excited to see what comes next.
Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, solid product through and through. It's entertaining. It's definitely worth checking out. If you made it so far through the first episode and you weren't turned off by it, keep going because it's definitely well worth it. It's as quality product as the rest of it. So yeah, if this is definitely something that's up your alley, keep on rolling down the lane.
And I guess what are both your ratings, like out of 10?
For this episode, I'd probably say solid, 7.5. Nothing revolutionary, but entertaining.
Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I would say 7.5 to 8. Pretty much the same as the first episode.
And Nolan, final thoughts and rating?
I thought it was a fantastic wrap up to the short story that is Don't Go Into the Basement, you know what I mean? And then a good transition into the haunted car. It's and I like that bit that it was it essentially ends right where the next one begins, if that makes sense. I always love stuff like that where it does that, instead of it being you have to have a huge setup or something for the next episode. This was just, it felt really clean and clean cut, because it's just car, heel, done. And you're huh, it ended up like a cliffhanger, but it was literally the best cliffhanger you could possibly have moving into this the next episode, right? Which as if you can see the title says haunted car, you're oh, okay, that makes so much sense now. So I actually really enjoyed that bit, and I wish a lot more shows would do that. It's one of those ones that they do. You'll get whatever happens, and then you'll get character reaction, and then it's end of show. I really just wish sometimes it was just that, where it's bam, end, that's it. No character reaction, no, what is people clearly they're gonna be there, what are they gonna do, kind of thing. Everyone's wondering it, we don't need to see them react to whatever it is, right? Unless the reaction is something completely out of left field. But for the most part, it's like, okay, we get like something crazy happened. Like obviously the people are shocked. Like there doesn't need to be a reaction of them being shocked. It's like, we know they're going to be shocked. So it's like, just go, you know? And I think that's what like the way this ends or whatever happens like that, and just makes it kind of cool. Overall though, I give this episode a 8.2. I give the first one an 8. I give this one an 8.2, if you will, for part 2. And yeah, mostly because I liked it a little bit better than the first one, but that's just because it gave you a lot of like resolution to some of the stuff, but also that AJ RJ backslash and fourth the fifth gets his comeuppance or whatever. So it makes it, just gives it that 0.2 better, because nobody liked that kid, like realistically, you know what I mean? So
yeah, such a manipulative character. I was really happy when Frankie, because she started to fall into it, and then she was like, no, this is for real. And I was like, okay, good, don't fall into it again. Because obviously, like David said, the mama was like, this isn't the first time it's happened.
Right, yeah, she was bringing it up like, oh, I've heard that song before. You're like, oh, okay, Mom, go, you know what? Go do your double shift, all right? Go, leave me alone.
But Mom, I'm serious this time.
I'm serious, yeah. No one takes me seriously. Yeah,
I mean it.
One of those things that no, and I think it's that part was like kind of cool too, to some degree, is just because it's very illustrative of the way that like happens, right? Because a lot of us, I'm sure, on both sides or whatever, you know what I mean, whether you have friends or you're like, why are you still with that guy? Like, that's, you know what I mean, like, dude's bad for you, it's not whatever, it's not working for you, it's not, you don't like it, you're not happy, whatever kind of thing, but they just like never leave. And it's one of those things that's like, well, why? It's like stuff like that. Well, I'm just trying to be the guy that, you know what I mean, like takes care of you and blah, 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 like you just got to hang with me the whole time or whatever. And it's just like, words are nice, bro, but like you keep doing the same shit.
It also comes as no surprise that he's the guy that's already graduated high school, but is still dating a high schooler.
100%.
Right. I was going to say the fact that he's also not in school. He is the 21-year-old vaping Subaru owner, if you will. That hangs out by the high school. Is
WRX, baby.
Hey, look, I used to have a steer, right? So I can talk like that. No big deal. But yeah, it's one of those ones that, yeah, he's definitely that guy though. I got the cool car or whatever, hang out by the high school, you know what I mean? Like a little older,
Let's be honest, Dad's let him drive around a Trans Am. That's pretty much just, the biggest staple of that kind of character for sure.
Oh, 1000%, right? Like we know the type.
A Trans Am that he parks across the street in someone else's parking.
Somebody else's parking layout. Somebody else's freaking driveway on top of that.
Yeah. The more the times change, the more they stay the same.
They never went over that either, of like why he's parking over there. Like
they said that he doesn't want it on the street, and he said that he had an agreement with the mom.
Well, she doesn't
that
have a
she
car.
let him park.
Yes, that's cool and all, but like, there's no other space in your driveway. Like,
I take it his dad probably takes this, like their family takes the space, and he doesn't want his baby on the street.
Well, then don't give the kid the baby. I don't. Then you park the work truck on the street. I don't know what to tell. Like, there's so many other options here. I just this has not answered any questions, David. This has just given me, or haven't given any answers. It's just given me more questions. Realistically,
they usually have to be the most problems in Goosebumps books or products.
But no, Junior over there is definitely classic, full on douche, which is cool to see. Which, by the way, you bring up a good point. It's cool to see that, and you're like, what? You're giving me that look like, what do you mean? What I mean by that is a lot of the villains that we've gotten these days, there's always some good, like, redeemable quality or whatever about them, and they're always trying to make them not villains. Not that this kid was a villain, but it's just, you know what I mean? Like, dude was he was a full douche, right? Like, there wasn't like he's a douche to just everybody else, but he's like got a heart of gold kind of thing, like takes care of his mom. You know what I mean? Like that outward appearance of like, I'm just, upset and whatever, blah, 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 but I'm still nice on the. They didn't do any of that. It was just, dude was the most I liked that character was when he was actually in the lab, like destroying stuff, because he looked like he was actually having fun. like just like, but also I don't know why, but like the little destructive like person in me, I just always would love to do that. Just like grab things and just whoops, like just like, you know what I mean? Let them. Oh, what's that? Oh well, and just like walk around like a room and just slide like just full on cat behavior, like. Oh, that's so satisfying. And then, you know, I mean, go about my business. But yeah, like I said, that was the most I enjoyed that character, was why he was actually destroying stuff in the lab, and that's about it. So yeah, little weird villain rant there.
See, Nolan, they do have places you can go pay to break stuff. So
right, but see, the thing is I live in a very small, lame town that doesn't include cool stuff like that. Because like the rage rooms are awesome.
But yeah, so my rating 7.5, pretty solid again. I'm really excited to see where the series goes, and I think they've captured the spirit of Goosebumps with the series so far. So hopefully they keep it up, and yeah, we'll be back. But David, Abnormal Voyages, what can you tease the fans? What is something that they should go check out on your channel?
Everything. Go check it all out. So like much. It's only like 200 episodes. You can plow through that before our next episode.
I mean, realistically, it's less than One Piece, so yeah, you can.
There you go. And I believe our official return with new episodes is going to be February 5th. So a couple weeks from now, stay tuned.
And Greyson, you got any movie review you want to tease?
I mean, other than the Wolfman that we did on Monday.
I'm sorry, Nosferatu, but
I mean, I was leading up to it. I'm just starting off with that. But Nosferatu will drop this weekend. We'll be talking about how, you know, Hot Topic and Hallmark need to definitely collaborate and make a movie after this movie, because it fits way too well. But no, keep an eye out for that. And I know it might be a little bit late, but hey, it'll be coming out this weekend.
And then Nolan, what about any fun Ghostbusters? I almost said Goosebumps now. I'm like just so backwards on it.
Goosebusters. Ghostbumps.
Is that like Ghostbumps? Yeah.
Ghostbumps and Goosebusters.
Goosebusters. Actually, that's not even paranormal. That's just some naughty
cool,
waterfowl.
It seems like if you like lived in a place where there were goose, like you would have to call the Goosebusters, because goose are, well, lack of a better term, just assholes. They're not nice creatures. Anyways, no, all the same stuff. You know what I mean? It's been going on for the past couple weeks. I still don't know when that episode's gonna come out, because it's a very long process. I don't think people quite understand sometimes that these shows that we love and watch and review and do all that kind of stuff sometimes take absolutely forever to be edited, to be, you know, put together, cut, shot, whatever. So yeah, overall, it's one of those things that I'm not entirely sure when that next episode is going to come out, but I can tell you it's probably going to be the next, at least hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, and it's one of those things like Keegan's seen some bits of it, and it's one of those things that judging by everybody else's reactions so far to the ones that have seen bits and pieces of it, it should be fairly good, and people should get a pretty good laugh out of it. So yeah, but other than that, not too much.
Yeah, and then we'll be back next Tuesday to talk the Super Bowl, because by then we'll know who's won the conference championships. And Friday we have an interview going live with Jimmy Blue. I had to think for a second. So if you guys like Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Blue, go check it out on Friday. On February 3rd, we're going to announce it today, but we have a new book club. David, we finally got a name. What is the name of our new book club?
It is the Society of Main Characters.
Solid. Like it. And Greyson, what is the first book that we're reading?
Some library at midnight or something, but no. Midnight Library will be the first book.
I don't know, some damn library or something. You know.
Yeah.
Midnight Library. What are we doing?
That's the library. It's midnight.
Why did you go to the library at midnight? They're closed.
That's for young whippersnappers for sure. Yeah.
Are you getting up to no good? What's happening?
Yeah, so we will be talking Midnight Library, February 3rd, 7 p.m. So join us live as we discuss it. So if you guys want to go read it and talk to us as well live about your thoughts as we talk our thoughts, it'd be fun to hear them. Trying to think what else. We got 2 pop culture chats we decided. February 17th is Captain America, Brave New World. And then March 17th is The Electric State. As well as stay tuned, Greyson. He will be returning for a fun project that's been in the works for a long, long time. But little voiceover work. He may or may not have played the character live action as well for me one time. But he's also working on a community where you guys can come talk to us. So we'll let you know more once it's live. But for more Goosebumps, just related stuff, because I'm sure at some point maybe we'll go watch season 1. Talk the books, whatever. Click that link to your bottom left for that playlist. For more here at Culz Paranormal, click that link to your right. For more Culz reviews, click that link to your top left. Don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know what was your favorite twist in a Goosebumps book. Tell us in the comments below.